Yeah, I remember first meeting. You know, when you talk about like the early days of the UFC, like you are one of the real original legends of MMA. I mean, you were one of the very first guys, and you were one of the very first guys. First of all, you were one of the very first guys, if not the first, to wear gloves, which I always thought was very smart. I know Vitor, I think, was one of the first.
No.
Who was the very first? Was it you?
I don't know. The people out there in the internet world say this Melton Bowen guy, he was a striker, boxer kind of guy in the early UFCs. I did not get the idea from him at all. And who was the other guy with the one glove, boxing glove?
He just died recently. Damn it.
Yeah.
I forgot his name.
It was back in the days with the Fred
Art
Edish.
Jimerson.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Fred Edish. That's right. Fred Edish.
And Harold Howard and all those guys
yes.
kicking. And at the time, I had just gotten out of jail for beating up a cop's son, and he used his position to his dad make things go the way for the prosecution, even though he deserved to get beat up, and I obliged him. But I was going back and forth from a halfway house to work from the guy that got me into the show. And we stopped off at like a Dick's sporting goods store, big box sporting goods store like that. I don't think it was Dick's, but it was something like that. And they were bag gloves. And I put them on and I go, these would be perfect, but they had a post in them, so you couldn't really wrestle with them. And I was like, I could take the post out. I ended up cutting it off, and it was just a clear plastic thick tube that you could hold on to. So I got rid of that, and I go, these are perfect. And I think they were Harbinger gloves. And I knew, because I'd been in hundreds of street fights, altercations. That's where I come from, although I've wrestled since I was 8 years old. But I used to beat people up on the street that
deserved it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not one guy out there that didn't want to do the same thing to me. I was just better at it. So I knew my hands would get hurt. And I'm like, you can't fight 3 times in one night without your hands getting busted up. So I cut those out, and I go, these are perfect. I could wrestle in them. As I said, I'd wrestled my whole life, and they were perfect.
Did you have hand wraps on?
No hand wraps.
Just the gloves?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you wrap your wrists or anything?
No.
Nothing? Mm-mm. And what was the law back then? What were the rules, rather? What were the rules for what you were allowed to wear wrestling shoes? You were allowed to hit the nuts back then. And your first fights, you were allowed to pull hair, hit the nuts.
You could do anything. There wasn't until I came along. And anyways, you just couldn't, I can't even tell you what you couldn't do, but that you couldn't bite and you couldn't eye gouge. Those were the only 2 rules.
I think fish hooking, right?
No, that was me.
Oh, really? You started?
I introduced them to fish hooking. And so at the fighters meeting, they have these meetings with all the fighters, and they all sit in there and I guess think they're badass, but I guess they are in their own world. But so they're all sitting around, and Big John McCartney was up there explaining the rules, and I think he is having trouble since there wasn't any. So at the end of that, I asked him, I said, I had the gloves with me, and I said, hey, can I wear these? And in his big, bellowing, goofy voice, he goes, oh, if you want to wear them, go ahead, thinking I was some kind of fool, when in fact I was thinking everybody else were fools. They've never really been in a fight, and your hands get busted up. So
yeah, I thought the very first time I saw you wearing them, like, that guy's smart. And look, and when you knocked out, was it John Tua?
Matua, yeah.
Matua, John Matua. When you knocked him out, I was like, see, like this, you can still generate insane power, but you don't hurt your hands.
Absolutely. And I didn't hurt my hands, although at the end of that fight, I not that fight, but you fought 3 times in one night, and I think I busted up my hand. It didn't break it, but it busted up where I had to go to the hospital and get it x-rayed, and I got to go. I didn't want to go because I was a kid, and like no one sends me to the hospital, even myself, you know. My busted up hands, no, I'll be all right. But my father talked me into going, so I went there, and all my opponents were all stretched out, and I'm saying, oh, well, how you doing? I'm just passing through. So they x-rayed it and said I was all right, and went back to the cocktail party and had some fun.